Right, so a blood supply to the nervous system, including the circle of Willis. So, like any video of mine, this could go horribly wrong. How on earth are we going to do this? Well, let's do starting anywhere. So let's start right in the middle. So this is a nice one to start with. There we go. Right, that's the main bit, and I probably should have left enough space to label it. Never mind. So anyway, whatever. So let's start with this thing there, and we'll draw a little bit, and then we'll label a little bit, and try not to knock over the tripod in amongst all of it, in amongst all of the excitement. How much have we got? Right. Okay, so that's the first bit. I should have just actually, hang on, close the blinds so the lights. That's better. Just close the blinds so we don't have funny light on the screen. So, good. So this looks like some kind of road at the moment, actually, doesn't it? So let's start labelling it up already. Let's go to town. So, so this first initial hump is your posterior cerebral artery. So we'll put PCA there. Posterior cerebral artery. So we can just assume that it's mirrored on either side. We're not writing them each side. That'd just be silly. Oh, hang on, I've closed the wrong blind, haven't I? Right, the struggle is real. So, and then we've got this A road down here. Now this is called the big bastard basilar artery. So basilar. And then we've got these two B roads coming off the A road, and these are our vertebral arteries. So we're going to have left vertebral, vertebral artery, and then right vertebral artery. So vertebral arteries, where could they be? They might be down the back. So the vertebral arteries are what go down the back, down your vertebrae, funnily enough, down those wee holes. Goes out of your foramen magnum, then out down those little wee holes, which I can't remember the name of, in your vertebrae. So that's that. Right, then what have we got? So we have got a couple of little things coming off here. What's that? So these are called your superior cerebellar arteries. Superior cerebellar arteries. Okay. Superior cerebellar arteries. Gosh, I wonder what they could supply. Then this is a nice little one. You got all these little cul-de-sacs. And these little cul-de-sacs are called the pontine arteries. Pontine arteries. What could they supply? Maybe they supply the pons. And then we've got a couple along the bottom. So these, right, so one here and one here. and one here and one here. So, oh, that's quite nice and easy to remember. So we've got the anterior inferior cerebellar arteries and the posterior inferior cerebellar arteries. So if we're thinking that, right, so these are vertebral arteries, so they're at the back of your body, right? So back moving forwards, what's this one going to be? So it's nearer to the back than that one, so that's going to be your posterior inferior cerebellar arteries. So we're coming around, coming around the underside of the brain. At least I think that's where this is. Bloody better be. So therefore, this is the next more forward one. So it's going to be anterior. It is anterior, remarkably, to the posterior one. So anterior inferior cerebellar arteries. Cerebellar artery. So we're just thinking about where they are. Okay. Then what have we got? We'll just stick this one in. Don't forget this one. And that is the anterior spinal artery. So the anterior spinal artery runs up the anterior of the spine. Yeah, so it runs up the anterior spine, and it supplies the front 2/3. The front 2/3 of the vertebrae. So thinking about that, if it supplies the front 2/3 of the vertebrae, if we've got an infarct, so it's going to affect your anterior and lateral spinothalamic tracts because there's no blood supply. It's not going to affect the dorsal column because it's not supplying blood to the dorsal side of the vertebrae. It's on the anterior of the spine and it supplies the front 2/3. Isn't that clever? So, anterior spinal artery. Anterior spinal artery. So that's that. That's the posterior supply, actually. That's it. So, interesting to note, posterior. So here you can see cerebella. Where is your cerebellum? It's around the back of your head. So of course it's going to be in the posterior part of this diagram. Because it's very easy to mix up cerebellar and cerebral. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. Sorry, just doing some more blinds. Ah, there we go. I mean, now we can't see anything, but it's fine. Right, so that's that so far. So that's your anterior portion. So, all right, I'm going to have to move stuff around a little bit. Okay, so now we've done the posterior, now we can do the anterior. So, where's my red pen? There we go. So we're going to have a couple of really important ones here. Right, and these are called your internal carotids. And they're circles because they're going upwards. They're not underside, they're going upwards, right? So it's like a cross section, if you like. So we've got internal carotids, and then we've got a couple coming off here. Okay. Oops, daisy. Oh, buggeration. Couple coming off here. And a couple coming off here. Right, so 2 L shapes with your internal carotids as a junction. So what are these bad boys called? In fact, I'm going to do these in a different colour. These bad boys are called these two, middle cerebral arteries. Middle cerebral arteries. Okay, now we're not round the back of the head anymore, we're round the front of the head. Yeah, your cerebellum is not round the front of your head. Therefore, the C in MCA would be cerebral. So, you've got your middle cerebral arteries. So if we've got a posterior cerebral artery, a middle cerebral artery, it stands to reason that we'll probably have an anterior one as well, front, middle and back, right? Well, those two are your anterior cerebral arteries. There we go. Anterior cerebral arteries. These two bad boys. Remembering we're mirroring everything, okay? Then what have we got? In fact, I'm just going to label those internal carotids, otherwise I'll forget. Internal carotids. And in my exam, I'll be like, what? Oh God, what was IC again? I can't remember. So, just so we know. Right, so then what have we got? We have got, actually, what am I going to do? Let's think of a colour. Right, we need to connect these two, don't we? So we're going to have one that comes down here, and one that comes down here. Yeah, and then we're going to have one that comes across here. Now, you could look at it as this is joining up. These are joining up front and back. This is joining up side to side. Well, and they are named accordingly. So, these bad boys, they are communicating. Actually, sorry, let's go the other way around. This is at the front of the head, and this is forming a circle. Yeah, circle of Willis. And this is allowing these two anterior cerebral arteries to communicate. So what could these be called? Maybe they're called anterior, because they're at the front, communicating arteries. So if that's your anterior communicating artery, helping the front of your brain, if we are connecting the anterior supply and the posterior supply, and we're allowing them to communicate, these bad boys are going to be your posterior communicating arteries. Communicating arteries. Arteries. Okay. So just for good measure, we're going to talk about what's the anterior and the posterior supply. Okay, so this is your anterior supply. And this is your, probably help if you could see it, your posterior supply. Okay, and circle of Willis. What is the circle of Willis? It is a circle. Ha 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 ha. It is what connects the anterior to the posterior parts of the circulation to the brain, to the nervous system. So we're going to colour them in. Look at that. Right, I've got a highlighter pen. Let's hope it works. Let's double check. Yeah. So, okay, here, here. Let's hope I do this right, because it would be terrible if I don't. Here now. Down here, and then through here. Isn't that pretty? So, do you like my highlighter? It's a cat. There we go. That is your blood supply to the nervous system. And the highlighted bit is the circle of Willis.